Hello my friends and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I have another installment of underrated albums for you. Another album that I just feel just doesn't get the love and appreciation that it deserves. So today's band in question, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of the German Teutonic Thrash Metal 4, a genre-wide favourite and just outrageously good band. I'm talking about the mighty Kreator, and a superb band. Underrated, in my opinion. Their sixth album, Cause for Conflict, all too often overlooked because it's a little bit of an experimental piece. But just to set the scene, Kreator absolutely set the scene ablaze with their first album, Endless Pain, and the subsequent releases, Pleasure to Kill and Terrible Certainty. They also then went on to release Extreme Aggression and Coma of Souls. All great albums, all seminal thrash metal releases, absolutely incredible material, right at the more extreme end of thrash metal. But then they completely derailed themselves with the release of their sixth album, Renewal. Now, I have tried to get into this album a few times and I just really cannot understand what this album is all about. It's more of an industrial kind of experimental piece. It is not a thrash album. It's not a Kreator album, in my opinion. I can't even really pick out any tracks that are worth listening to. It's just a dismal piece. And I know that now they recognise, or Millie Petroza recognises, that this is not a particularly good career move. But what really surprises me is, I don't know if you can see, just on the inside of this Digipack release, this was reissue from 2018, there is a Kerrang review, or I assume it would have been Kerrang, it's got K's, 5K review, absolutely praising this album for being so different and experimental. I really don't understand that because it's not a good album. I'm sorry, I haven't met anyone that thinks Renewal is a good album. Having said that, their seventh album from 1995, Cause for Conflict, I think is actually a really good album. Very different, not as clear-cut thrash as those first five albums, but it's still a thrash album. At its core, its very spine is thrash metal. But we get a lot of incorporations of there's little industrial elements here and there, but there's also a whole lot of punk, hardcore and crossover influences. There's a real injection of those sounds and styles here. And what is apparent on listening to this album, you listen, just give it a chance, give it a listen, and you'll know what I mean. This album sounds so pissed off. This is such an angry album. Millie Petroza, vocalist, guitarist there, the main man of the band, he sounds seethingly angry. He sounds pissed off. He sounds annoyed. The whole album is very socio-political. There's a lot of almost like a punk ethic to it. A whole lot of promotion of revolution and riot and rising up and fight oppression. A whole lot of that going on. So it's a very punk album, but I think it's a great album. We get some really good material here. Opening track, Prevail, a really strong track, actually. We get some really good riffs in there, interesting sort of industrial edge as well. Catholic Despot, good track, a really good track, very angry, absolutely so pissed off. Progressive Proletarians, really great track, that's more of a thrasher. Crisis of Disorder, heavy, nice track that one. Bomb Threat, interesting, very short. We get these sort of more punk, more direct punk tracks. It's a very short, very punky, spiky song. Men Without God, Lost, which is a brilliant thrasher, really an album highlight for me. Dogmatic, strong, again, it's one of those shorter, punkier tracks. Then we've got Celestial Deliverance, good, heavy. These are all heavy songs. We get plenty of speed thrown in there. plenty of great riffs. Really love it. And also, interestingly, the drumming on top form. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Isolation, the closing track of the original album, that's a bit of an odd one because it starts off very slow. It's very quiet. It's a real slow burner. It's about 5 minutes long, I think, but it builds into something far heavier towards the end. But then, annoyingly, we get about 6 minutes or 5-6 minutes of silence before we get a whole host of animal noises, which is an interesting choice, I have to say, and not one that I can really get on board with. So after the music has finished, I happily skip to the next track. And for the purpose of this review, as I've got the package here, I may as well mention the bonus tracks there. Suicide in Swamps, weird track, experimental, industrial, definitely industrial. Bit of an odd one, but it's not a bad track. Limits of Liberty, a shorter, sharper, punkier track, and then we get a cover, State Oppression. Not sure who originally did that, but it's a very punky, little spiky track. Not bad at all. But overall, I would say this is a really good album, sandwiched between this very difficult to get on with, very odd album, Renewal, and of course Outcast, which was a much bigger success for them. Spawned some tracks that, or a track in particular, Phobia, which has certainly been featured on their live set up until very recently. So, Cause for Conflict, I can understand why it would be underrated, because it's a bit of a different period in the band's history, in their career. We had those amazing first 5 albums, then they sort of started experimenting and doing different things, and it would have alienated and isolated all of the thrashers. They would have lost interest, and I can imagine that a lot of people would have been a little bit less inclined to go back and give them another chance after that Renewal album. But I really would say that their 7th album, Cause for Conflict, is a really strong album. Tracks to check out, rather, I would say Prevail, the opening track, and the second track, Catholic to Spot. I would also recommend checking out Lost and probably Crisis of Disorder. All good tracks. I'm just trying to remember which are the best ones, really. A very good album, a strong album. Not as thrashy as their earlier or latter material, definitely not, but it's a really strong album. Check it out. Cause for Conflict by the mighty thrash gods Kreator. What are your thoughts on this album? Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? Have you checked it out? If so, let me know. I'm interested to hear other people's thoughts and opinions on this album. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe as always, and do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all things good and heavy. Take care, my friends. Stay heavy.